this idea of the flood, right? In Judeo-Christian mythology, we have this idea of the flood, that the earth was flooded, God became angry and flooded the earth so that we could restart, right? But it doesn't just exist in Christian mythology; it exists in other places too. That the ancient Mesopotamians, had the same kinds of beliefs, that they believed that there was a flood, that instead of Noah there was another guy, and instead of a dove he used a raven, and these stories persist. So if they persist and they bounce around and we change the names and the dates and the symbols, it tells you that something probably happened. And that goes along with the Sphinx and the flooding. There's been a lot of research into what that flood could have been. And one of the theories is that out by the Strait of Gibraltar, that there was actually a block, and that there was a technologically advanced civilization that lived in what is now the Mediterranean. And at some point, because of earth changes or whatever, that block broke down, and the sea actually flooded in and flooded out the Mediterranean and created it. And that technologically advanced civilization that had lived in the grasslands that was before the Mediterranean Sea, that they were washed away. So and things like volcanic explosions and other things, asteroid strikes and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's totally possible.
Yeah, makes me wonder. Well, hey, Michael, we're going to have to wrap up the show here in about 5 minutes. Do you want any books or magazines? You publish a magazine, I believe. Do you want to tell people how they can find it?
Sure. I do publish on an irregular basis, Paranoia Magazine. We publish books as well. Lots of fun stuff. We always have a bunch of weird articles that are interesting on the website, paranoiamagazine.com. From there, you can get us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, all the usual suspects. But what I've been doing recently is going back through very old UFO magazines from the 60s and the 70s, trying to find interesting articles from those and put them up so people can read them. Because, I know I only have a minute or two left, but I found that I have a penchant for very old UFO documentaries. And I found there's very interesting information in there that is often overlooked by today's ufology. And a great example is I was watching one, and they were talking about cattle mutilations, and this guy had taken a black light and shined it over a cow that had been mutilated, and it had some sort of phosphorescent material on it. And so then he went out into his larger herd and ran it over, and he saw that some of them were tagged with phosphorescent material, and lo and behold, the ones with phosphorescent material started disappearing and coming up as being mutilated. So, I've been going and trying to find some retro UFO articles from back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that have kind of been lost to time. Try to get those up so people can read them as well.
I don't know.
See, paranoiamagazine.com.
Yeah, I will say this. We can go over about 5 minutes if you want. I did have a guest on that was talking about cow mutilations that, basically they're not from aliens at all. They're from our government, basically. I don't know if you remember that show, Michael. I think you were on it. But she was saying that, that it's the government doing it basically to, scare people. I disagree because, some of these mutilations were happening in the snow, or there was no blood in the snow, there was no footprints, no tracks, no nothing. And a lot of the stuff too, when they were looked at afterwards, some of the surgery to remove all this stuff was done
laser precision
or better. That's what's interesting. Yeah. And there's no way they're going to take a helicopter and, snag a bull or a cow and bring it in on the helicopter and remove the stuff and then drop it back down. I just don't believe that. I don't know how you feel about it, or Michael, how you feel about it, but I just got a funny feeling that is not a government thing to basically scare people. I don't know.
Well, I saw one investigation where they claimed that when they when they looked at the surgical lines where the cuts had been made, that it was actually between cells, and they'd obviously used some sort of a high-powered laser. So, no, I don't think it's the government. I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's the government.
No, and the same way, like the people missing in the national forest. I'm just wondering if the same thing. They're out there, camping or, out. What better way to snake people?
Sure.
They're out there. I'm sure.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
I heard a hell of a story once that there was a guy that claimed in Vietnam that there had been a B-52. I don't know how true this is, but there was a B-52 that was shot down. It was doing a bombing mission, and they had fired a missile and shot down this B-52. This guy was sent out as part of a retrieval team to find the B-52, see if there were any survivors, destroy sensitive material, whatever. So they went on board the B-52, and they had thought that it was shot down by a missile, but when they got inside, all the crewmen were actually strapped to their chairs, and some of them were drained of, not all of them, but some of them were drained of blood, and they had the same kind of marks, the same kinds of cuts, the same kinds of stuff from a cattle mutilation. And they were still strapped in their seats. So it seemed he hypothesized that something had blown it out of the sky. And after they had gone on board and and actually removed material from the people, and then they basically dropped it, and it fell out of the sky and crashed.
Oh, that
I don't know how true that is, but
well, it's always a possibility. I mean, I just think there's so much going on, and the government I know knows so much more, and they just don't want to tell us. And I think and you know what? There's a lot of people out there. It could take it. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, I knew the whole time that there, was aliens and UFOs."
Yeah.
But then there's going to be a certain amount of people. The first thing they're going to do is go grab their guns. Then they're going to start thinking that their neighbor is an alien. I mean, I remember again going back on one of the Twilight Zone ones.
Monsters of Elm Street.
Yeah. They start thinking that guy was the alien. That's the alien, and people.
And they never got the alien. The alien left at the end.
Yeah.
He walked away and his little ears popped up.
Yeah. And the thing is, that's what I guess a lot of people or humans would do. They would sit there and, that's scary though. Just even think that would happen. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in the near future about this, Space Force. If, Congress or the Senate will give them money. I mean, they have to rob money now from Social Security to keep funding other things. I don't understand why they just didn't turn it over to the Air Force rather than create a Space Force.
Well, the Air Force has it already. I mean, Space Command exists in the Air Force. They handle all that kind of stuff. That they're the ones doing it, And I think it's distraction. I really do. I think it's a distraction from something else, and it's an easy way to explain away in about 5 years. To explain away all the weird stuff we see in the sky. It's like, oh, that's a space plane.
Yeah, but we don't know if that space plane was ours or its.
Yeah, I know. But we don't have to. That's their problem, right? They're supposed to do it for us.
Well, I just wait, like that one movie. I wonder what would happen if a UFO actually landed in a populated area? Would we sit there and put out tanks around it and, armored vehicles and troops and then start shooting at it? I mean, that's like, I hate to say it, the cowboys and Indians. The cowboys had guns at the start, and the Indians, before they got their guns, had, arrows. I mean,
bows and arrows.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling if we fired on it, we could be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what they did. I don't think it'll ever happen, but it would be interesting. It would be very interesting.
Hey, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. And, it was kind of interesting right at the beginning of the call. But, I'm glad I'm glad it worked out. And, I'd like to bring you on sometime. Hey, Michael, I don't know, again, Michael is my Sunday host. He is now going to be doing a 7 to 9 show on Sundays about UFOs and stuff like that. Michael, this might be a great guest for you down the road.
Oh, this was a great show. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine. I really enjoyed it. Anytime you want me to come on, let me know.
I sure will. And, hey, have a good evening. And I'm sorry if I disrupted whatever project you were doing, because it sounded like you were doing something.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
it was a surprise. I was like, what?
Well, you know what was a big surprise? I wasn't feeling good today, and I decided to take a nap at 3 o'clock. And come around 7 o'clock, my wife comes walking in the bedroom. She goes, "Don't you have a show?" And I said, "Yeah, it's about like 4 o'clock, isn't it?" "No, it's 7 o'clock." So, I mean, I was freaking out. So It's been one of those days.
Well, we were freaking out together. But I think you were much more calm than I was.
That's old age, Anyway, hey, you have a great evening, and you'll probably get an email from me here in the next few days, and we'll, get you back on. So you take care and have a great.
I can do Lemuria.
Okay, take care now.
All right, man.
Bye.
You too. Bye.
So, hey, Michael.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the quietest you've been in a long time.
Well, I didn't want to interrupt your flow. You were great there. Great answers, great questions, and he was a great guest.
Oh, yeah. I just let him go because, it was interesting. We talked about from the Nazi bell to, rebooting of Earth and everything else. It was kind of, I like this type of show because it gives more entertainment and more variety to, the couple-hour show.
Oh, yeah. And you just don't know where it's going to end up. You just keep following the conversation.
Now, I want your feedback, because you're really into UFOs. I just want your feedback about, our president, creating a Space Force. Do you feel it's kind of a cover-up situation where they're trying to cover up something that's already been created and it has been for maybe a few decades? Or do you feel there's something else that's going on that they're kind of like don't want the public to know about? I'm sure you have given it some thought like I have.
Yes. Well, my feeling is that there is a program that's been a concerted effort to disclose things in a much faster rate lately. The New York Times article came out in December of last year, but even before that, the idea that they are, through the media and entertainment industries, they're trying to acclimate us, I think, as the public, to this whole idea of life outside the planet, and maybe this Space Force kind of thing is another kind of like project that they're going to use to try to convince folks that this is something we need to do because there are threats from outer space, coming towards the planet. I don't know that that's the case, but I think in reality they're going to be trying to red pill people relatively quickly to the existence of an alien presence that might be visiting Earth. The interesting thing with President Trump, when he made that announcement of the creation of the Space Force, because you mentioned before that he was rumoring to do this, and then finally he just came out and said, yes, it's going to happen. But the reason that he gave on that press conference was not that we needed to protect our country from other countries with space forces or nuclear weapons. He said it was important to protect the planet.
Humanity. Yeah.
Humanity. And I'm going, wow, that was a big leap right there.
Well, yeah, it had me concerned because, like I said before, I got to talk to Reagan a few times when he was president, and only because of a friend, who knew him. And, when he mentioned Star Wars to me one time in a little short conversation we had, because I don't know if I brought it up or he brought it up, but, it wasn't, like he said, it wasn't so much to protect us against Russia. He just said what's out there. Now, him and Nancy were